Hi guys, and welcome to your first webinar. So Energy Balance. I'm Peter, I'm the head coach here at My Health Revolution. I'm going to be taking you through this webinar. So this is a really important one because it's the absolute foundations, the principles to weight loss and fat loss. And often people don't know this, and I want to make sure that everyone that comes through my program understands exactly how weight loss and fat loss occurs. Because often there's lots of confusion around this. So yeah, I'm going to simplify everything for you. So let's get into it. So introduction. So obviously, like I've touched on, we're going to be answering the question of what is energy balance. We are going to be asking the question is why is it important to know, and then how we can change our energy balance and the impacts that we can have on it. So the basics. So firstly, I just want you to picture, if you want, a set of scales like you can see on the screen, and on the left-hand side, you've got energy going in. And then on the other side, you've got energy going out. And I just want you to take a second. I'm going to pause for 10 seconds. And I want you to think about, from a body perspective, how do you get your energy into your body? And then how do you expend energy? So I'm just going to stop for 10 seconds, shut up, and let you think. And I want you to literally think about those two things. Go. Okay, that was awkward enough, right? So hopefully you come up with at least one or two sort of thoughts or suggestions, ideas, whatever. I'm going to go through them now, okay? So energy in to your body is your calories consumed, okay? It's your food, drink, anything, any food or drink that has calories in it, okay? So obviously water doesn't have calories. You might consume it or should consume it still, but yeah, it doesn't have calories. But any calories that are consumed is the energy in. And the energy out is comprised of four areas, okay, and split into four areas. So your BMI, your NEAT, your exercise, and something called your TEF. And I will go into those areas in more detail in just a moment. But I want you to imagine this, if you will. So you've got your set of scales, your energy going in, and you've got energy going out, okay? And if we imagine, if your energy is here, and your so energy in is here, and your energy out is higher, you will have created what's called a calorie deficit, okay? Because you're not giving your body the energy that it needs. It's expending more energy than you're giving it. And for weight loss, that is what we need, okay? So you need to consume less energy than your body requires. And I'll go into, appropriate deficit sizes and things like that later on. But that deficit is what you need. Now, if you have energy going in here and you have energy outgoing in here and they're exactly the same, you will maintain your weight, you will maintain your body fat in most circumstances. So, that's the maintenance element of it. And then if your energy in is higher than your energy out, you're creating a calorie surplus. So you're consuming more calories, more energy than your body requires. And that is how weight gain occurs. Okay, so if you want weight loss to occur, if you want fat loss to occur, you need to consume less calories than your body is expending. And if you are finding yourself putting on weight, or you have put on weight historically, it's because you've consumed too much energy, too many calories for your body's requirement. So I hope that makes total sense. That's the science behind it. That's the scales, the energy balance element of what we're talking about. And I'm now going to go into more detail in how energy goes in and energy goes out. So energy in, like I talked about, food and drink, and they're broken into macronutrients. Okay, so macronutrients, or macros, as you may hear, you might have heard that sort of thing before and been like, I don't really know what you're going on about. I'm sure there's a shop called Macros or something like that, but I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to, my food. Well, this is what people mean. This is what people are referring to. So often you hear about macro splits. So, I have 25% protein, 35% fats and 40% carbs. Most people that do macro splits don't really have an appreciation and understanding around energy balance and how actually the split when it comes to weight and fat loss isn't really that important. And I will talk about that in more detail in other webinars. But from a macro perspective, your protein, carbs, fats, and the forgotten one, which is alcohol. So protein and carbohydrates both have 4 calories per 1 gram. Okay, so 4 calories per 1 gram. And it doesn't matter where you get that source of carb or protein from. I'm sure at least a few of you guys probably have a negative opinion on carbohydrates. You shouldn't. All macronutrients have their place. You don't want to demonize or significantly reduce any of them, really. It's not that black and white. It's not good or bad. There's pros and cons to both. But whether you get your protein from, say, a steak or whether you got it from edamame beans, it doesn't matter. It's always 1 gram equals 4 calories. Same with carbohydrates. Dietary fat is 1 gram serves you 9 calories, so it's 2.25 times more calorie dense than the other 2 macronutrients. And then alcohol, which we all like to dabble in, I'm sure, on occasions, 1 gram or 1 milliliter is equal to 7 calories. Okay. Now, understand that doesn't mean if you have a pint, let's say, we'll use a pint. A pint is 568 mils, I believe. That doesn't mean it's 568 times by 7 because it's not 100% alcohol. So often people get confused about that because they're like, oh, well, if I have a pint, that's going to be like loads of calories. And actually, a pint is quite a lot of calories. However, it's not quite that black and white. Like I say, there's other ingredients that go into alcohol that can make it quite calorie dense. So yeah, bear that in mind. Now, just breaking down, giving you some examples of protein-based foods, as you can see on the screen. Red and white meat, fish, eggs, dairy, etc., etc. And then from a carbs perspective, rice, pasta, bread, fruit, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure lots of you know these examples. And then dietary fats, butter, nuts, oil, animal products. Obviously, this is an extensive list of what, foods have dietary fat in, far from it. However, it's just giving you some awareness and some examples. I won't put alcohol on because I'm sure we all know alcohol. Now, energy out. This is probably my favourite part of the webinar because this is like not just the science, but also really, really decent information for you guys to know. And once you get a grip of your energy out, I often find that things flow a little bit easier from an energy balance perspective. So there's 4 parts, which I touched on one of the other slides, which are BMR, NEAT, TEF, and exercise. Okay, and I'm going to take you through each section now and the percentage based on average people. Obviously, it can swing a little bit depending on people's jobs and lifestyles and things like that. But I'm going to take you through that now. So BMR stands for basal metabolic rate, and it's essentially all the things that are happening behind the scenes. Your heart beating, your breathing, healing, damaged tissue, pumping blood around the body, muscle growth, repair, etc., etc. It's the things that's happening essentially 24/7. If you're asleep, your heart is still beating, you're still breathing, your lungs are still expanding, etc., etc. So this is happening all the time, which is why it actually does have the biggest percentage of your energy out compared to all the others, and it's usually between 60 and 75%, which is massive, right? When you think that all the calories that you burn across your day, 60 to 75% of that comes from your BMR, which is something you essentially don't really have a lot of control on. There's a few things you can do, which I talk about in other webinars, but essentially it's just you being you, which is quite cool, I think, because people often think that if just say you're hungover. I'm hungover, I haven't moved from bed all day, I haven't burnt any energy at all. Actually, you have. You've burnt a lot of energy, a lot more energy than you realise. So that's BMR. Then you've got your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is essentially a posh word and a posh way of saying any activity that burns calories that isn't purposeful exercise. Simple as that. Okay, so that could be walking, shopping, gardening, housework, bedroom stuff, whatever activity it is that is not purposeful exercise. So if you go to the gym, that's purposeful exercise, and that fits under a different part of your energy out equation. Now, we've put 15 to 30+% because this can vary so much depending on the person. If you're a postman, for example, your NEAT's probably going to be through the roof because you're probably banging out 25, 30,000 steps on your working days. So whereas if you're an office worker and you're only doing till 3,000 steps a day, naturally that's a big swing. So this is where you can get the most wins. This is where you can really increase your expenditure, your energy out. Because if you've been doing, let's say, 3,000 steps a day for God knows how long, and you go from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, all the way up to 10, and you create that behavior, then naturally you're going to be burning way more calories and you're going to be in a better position. So, yeah, NEAT is a big element of the energy out equation, but you're mainly in control of it, which is the nice thing. Whereas with BMR and things like that, you're not so much in control of. So yeah, take the easy wins. Park further away. Don't drive at all. Walk. Be more active. I live in Southampton, and we have a big shopping centre called West Quay. And every time I go to West Quay, there's tons of people on the escalator, and the stairs are right next to them. And I can usually count on one hand how many people going up or down the stairs. And for most people, it's not that they're necessarily lazy. They might be. But it's not that they're necessarily lazy. It's just they're not thinking. They're not mindful. It's one of the words you'll hear from your coach a lot is be mindful, think, be aware. We're not asking you to be obsessive, but if you approach the escalators and it's just normal behaviour, like almost autopilot behaviour, just get on the escalators, stop and think and just go, no, I'm going to move literally a few yards to the left or right, and I'm just going to go up the stairs. And it's that type of mindset change and that mindfulness that will add to the bigger picture for sure. Then you've got something called TEF, which stands for thermic effect of food, which is essentially the energy required to digest the food that you consume. Now, just understand that the food that you consume, broken down into macros, so if you remember those macros, protein, carbs, and fats, out of all three, protein requires the most energy to digest. It's about 30% of the calories that you've consumed from that protein. So, for example, if you had 20 grams of protein, I've got to do quick maths here, 20 grams of protein in a meal, that would be obviously 20 times by 4, 2 4 is 80 calories. That is right, isn't it? Yeah, 80 calories. And then, 30% of 80, which is 80, is 24 of those calories would be almost like donated to digesting it. So it's really good. It's a really good idea. It's a really positive thing to do from your energy out perspective to increase your protein levels, which is one of the reasons we give you a protein goal. Carbs is about 20%, and then fat is next to nothing. So just bear that in mind. Last but not least is your exercise, which may really shock some people because often people go, I've got to lose weight, I'll go to the gym, and I'm like, do you? Do you really? This is a webinar that's going to be available on the app for God knows how long. Like I've re-recorded this a few times due to different reasons. But I'm going to give an example now. There's something that's recently happened to me. So if you're watching this in 2022, then it's not recent. But I recently ruptured my calf muscle playing football. And I wanted to give the example to my members and followers that you don't have to exercise to lose weight. And essentially, over a month period, I dropped 5 kilos by simply focusing on my energy in and understanding my energy out. And I didn't exercise at all because I was injured. So understand that you don't have to exercise to lose weight. Can it be a useful or almost like a cherry on top of the cake type thing to do? Yes, absolutely. But I would never, well, maybe not never, but in 99% of cases, I wouldn't suggest someone exercises for weight loss. The only reason I don't say 100% is just because we personalize everything for everyone, and there might be, almost like a random, rare situation where actually the NEAT is almost impossible, so actually exercise is something we might want to lean on more. But otherwise, like I say, look at the NEAT, understand calories in, understand the overall energy balance equation, work with your coach on that, of course, but understand that exercise is fantastic for lots of reasons, but to lose weight, it's, as you can see on the screen, it's the smallest part of that pyramid. It's the smallest part of the energy out that you can you can get right. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Naturally, some people will exercise a lot more, and that percent might be a little bit higher, but it's still going to be smaller. You can't train every single day, and if you do, you're probably overtraining. Whereas you can be active every single day, and that's the take-home message in and around NEAT. So, going back just very quickly, you may hear your coach or you may hear me in lives and things like that refer to this as your TDEE, and that's your total daily energy expenditure. Okay, and if you think about your TDEE, because you won't go to the gym every day and you won't exercise every day, sometimes the exercise element of the equation and the information you can see on the screen is 0% because you're not exercising at all. Whereas, like I say, NEAT, unless you're really under the weather and you are bedbound, which obviously exercise is going to be zero anyway, NEAT will very, very rarely be 0%. It's always going to be much higher. Anyway, moving on. So individual considerations. I just wanted to touch on this because, hopefully at this point you're like, right, okay, I understand energy balance. That makes sense. I'm understanding macros a bit better. That's cool. I've gone into detail around how my energy is expended. Yeah, I'm starting to make sense of this. Now what you need to understand is that everyone's different and your energy requirement will be unique to you, because I am a man of a certain height, etc., etc. I will need a certain amount of calories to sustain my weight. You may be a female with a different height and a different weight, and etc., etc., and you will need something different. So never copy someone else's calories. I've seen that before, and it's like, no, just invest in understanding how this works and get it right. Don't try and find shortcuts because they don't really exist. And when you're thinking about individual considerations, and when we think about individual considerations, this is what we look at. Okay, so we look at the gender of the person, so male or female. Men will require more calories on average than females. Sorry, ladies. We will look at the person's height, because the smaller they are, the less calories they need. It's just how it is. We look at someone's age, because the older you are, the slightly less calories you need. It's not as dramatic as you might think, but there's a consideration that needs to be made. We will look at someone's weight, and we will keep an eye on that as well, because naturally if your weight decreases, you require less calories. If you're a 100 kilo person, of 5'8", 38 years old, and your activity levels, stay static, if you put yourself into a deficit and you lose weight, if you compare that to let's say you lost 10 kilos, if you compare the 90 kilo person to the 100 kilo person, naturally a 90 kilo person will require less calories, or the version of you in this example will require less calories than when you were 100 kilos. So as that weight goes down, you do need to be progressive and you need to adapt accordingly. And then last but not least, which I kind of just touched on there, was activity levels. So if you're a particularly active person, you're going to need more calories than someone of a similar weight, age, height, gender, if they're much less active. So that makes sense, right? So they're all the considerations that we make, and why we can say that we are genuinely personalised for every single member that we have, because as you know, and you've got this far, so you remember, you've been asked these questions at the start before we've even set your calorie allowance and the goals and things that you have. So just very quickly, touching on eating too few calories and too many, it's on the next slide, and some of the consequences that are linked to that. And in particular, eating too few, because this is a really common thing. So if you drop your calories too low, adherence is going to become an issue at some point, because you're just not going to stay there. So I'm not saying there's not opportunities across your year, and when you become more knowledgeable and educated, and you've been working with your coach, where you can't drop them a bit further and be a bit more aggressive with the deficit. But often people go there straight away, and it's like, no, don't go there straight away. You won't be able to hit here. You'll go into a diet type mindset, which is obviously one of the points I've made on this slide, which is where you're restricting things, you're labeling things as bad. Then you break the low calorie approach that you've had, and you go absolutely mad on all the food that you've restricted. It's not needed. Don't do this. It's definitely unenjoyable for the people that are watching that have been like, they're thinking, yeah, I've been on really low calorie approaches before and it just sucks. It does suck. Of course it sucks. And there's no need to do that. It's not a sustainable thing to do. And if it's not enjoyable, if you are putting yourself into a bad mindset and creating poor behaviors off the back of it, don't do it in the first place. The impact it can have on your NEAT, if you lower your calories really low, more often than not, you will simply move less. It's just as simple as that, and the science and the evidence supports that. if you do go to the gym, or if you do have any sort of performance-based goals, sports, etc., you will almost certainly see a dip in performance because you're not fueled appropriately. And obviously, and I say obviously, but I'll explain why it's on the screen. Obviously, weight loss, but actually, there's this ridiculous theory that you can go into something called starvation mode. And I'm hoping a few of you are going, yeah, I've heard of that before. If you haven't, essentially, it's this theory that if you drop the calories too low, your body will recognize that and go, oh, I'm starving, I need to go into starvation mode, and then it holds on to everything and you don't lose any weight. That's utter rubbish. There's not a single shred of evidence to support that. What you can have are metabolic adaptations, you can have the impact on your NEAT and things like that, so your energy output can decrease, and often if people decrease their energy in, and they think their energy output is here, but it's actually in line, then you're not going to lose any weight. And then you go, oh, it must be starvation mode. And it's like, no, it's absolutely not. There's not shredded evidence to support starvation mode. And the harsh truths are, if you look back into, say, like World War II, when people were obviously treated unbelievably cruel, and there were prisoners of war and etc. They were genuinely starved, and no one was struggling to lose weight there, were they? When you are genuinely in a deficit, whether it's forced upon in that horrible scenario that I've just given, or whether it's a choice that people make, if you're in a genuine deficit, you will continue to lose weight. Very quickly on eating too many calories, and I'm not talking about the odd time where you eat too many calories, like Christmas and birthdays and anniversaries and things like that. I'm talking about over time. If you're constantly over consuming calories, if you're constantly putting on weight, and you go from overweight to obese and through the categories of obese, obviously there are health-related risks to that, and some of those are on the screen. Okay, so just bear that in mind, because a lot of you are here because you want to take action, and that's great. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So understand that what you're doing with us is going to, pay you back in dividends in an unbelievable amount. So, get this right, and you should be able to lead a healthy, happy lifestyle. Very last but not least, easy ways to overeat. So cooking oils, I just wanted to touch on because often people forget to track them, or just forget that they're cooking with them. And if you've never tracked or taken note of how many calories are in cooking oils, go and do it straight after this, and you will be shocked, absolutely shocked. I'm not demonizing it. If you want to use cooking oils, it's absolutely fine. However, you need to be aware that it has a lot of calories in, and if you're not tracking it, if you're not aware of it, and you're mindful of it, you might think you're consuming X amount of calories when actually you're consuming this amount of calories. So just bear that in mind. Trigger foods. So I'll put one of my trigger foods up, because who doesn't like a chocolate digestive? Actually, let me know. I don't think I've ever come across anyone. But a lot of people have trigger foods. It might be crisps, sweets, whatever. You want to speak to your coach and have an approach to your trigger foods, because we need to approach it. It shouldn't be a trigger. It shouldn't be, I couldn't say no. I've had a whole pack of chocolate digestives and I've just consumed 1,500 calories without thinking about it. Like we can help with that. I'm a big fan of approaching binge eating behaviours and emotional eating and that type of stuff, and I've got the science and the qualifications and the experience to help people with this stuff. So yeah, speak to your coach, because it might be that you need a short period of not consuming those foods, but that also might be the worst thing for you. So it's individual, it's personalised, like I've touched on, but speak to your coach, because we will support you with that. Healthy foods. So for example, a handful of nuts. It's a nice healthy food, right? But what about the serving size? Because they're both a handful of nuts. And the point I'm making is it's an easy way to overconsume if you, I guess, kind of like not take the mick, but you don't measure accurately. So like it's like if you take a spoonful of something, you can take a spoonful of ice cream. Yeah, it can be like piled to the absolute brim. Like you almost like, there's an art to it. And I've only had a spoonful, and it's like, wow, have you? Because a spoonful is, there's actually a measurement attachment to it, and actually you'll probably have 2 or 3. So just bear that in mind. Serving sizes and portions are really important, which is another example here of what I'm going to give. So peanut butter, nothing wrong with peanut butter. If you like peanut butter, fine, no issues at all. I've not got any issues with peanut butter. But on this picture, there's two pieces of toast, obviously one on the left, one on the right. Both have different volumes of peanut butter on, and this is the calorie difference. Okay, so portion on the left has 182 calories, portion on the right has 338. Now, if you had two pieces of toast in the morning, a lot of people go, oh, I haven't had a lot, I've only had two pieces of toast. If you had two pieces of toast on the right-hand side, you'd have almost had 700 calories. Now, that's quite a lot of calories, and it's not going to fill you, and you're going, oh, I don't understand why I can't lose weight. I don't really eat that much. But food volume and calorie totals and calorie volume, if you want, are two very different things, and you need to bear that in mind. Liquid calories, just be aware of them. I did a bit of work with someone recently where they were having a can of Coke a day, and I said, look, is there any chance you could just switch to the diet version? Would that be okay? And he was like, yeah, I don't really notice that much of a difference anyway. That's cool. Anyway, it ended up being something like over 50,000 calories across his year. It was a ridiculous amount of calories. And it's just easy ways to save calories. And when you think about the orange juice here, often people go, oh, orange juice, you're not being healthy. And maybe you are, maybe you're not. Maybe you need to think about what health means to you. But if you're trying to lose weight, this will have more calories in than most fizzy drinks. So, understanding energy balance, which is the whole point in this webinar, which is why we've gone through it in such detail, is the liquid calorie that you're consuming, is that really the most optimal choice you could make? And that's something for you to think about. Mindless eating, I've talked about being mindful, try not to be mindless. Imagine you're at the cinema and you're picking away at that popcorn, you pick, and you're not even thinking. You're watching the film, and it's just like, it's just that's all you're doing, and you can consume a lot of calories through being mindless. And I want you to ensure that you're being mindful. And then last but not least, just being unorganised. Although it's not a requirement, you don't have to be organised. We have a lot of members that come over from Slimming World, a lot of members. And the common trend, well, one of the common trends from ex-Slimming World members is this plan. I'm on plan, I'm off plan, or I plan my whole week or month of food. And it's like for me, if my wife said to me, I've got it's a Sunday night, what do you want for tea on Friday next week? I'll be like, I have no idea. Like, ask me next Friday. I don't want to plan that much. I like to be in the moment a bit as well, So, and often people that plan that much don't end up following it, and it gets to Thursday or whatever, and then they go, oh, well, I've messed it up, I'll start again Monday. And obviously it's not working for you, so just think about it. But being organised can also be really useful for a lot of people and really helpful. So if it's helpful for you, then please do it, but it's not a requirement. And that's that. So I just want to close out with a quick summary. So understand the importance of energy balance for fat loss. So I've touched on that in great detail, I hope, and I hope it's been really simple to understand, even though there's been a bit of science behind it. And just understand calories in, calories out, energy balance. That's what governs weight and fat loss. Know the ways to improve your energy balance for your goals. So again, if you're trying to implement a deficit, increasing your NEAT levels is probably a really useful thing to do. Having more protein is these are really useful things to do. So just understand where you can introduce positive choices and behaviours around your goals with, the minimal amount of impact to your life. Like, I'm a big fan of that. Take the can of Coke scenario that I gave a second ago. I said to the client, are you comfortable with doing that? And they said, yeah, that's fine. It was just an easy win. If you have full fat lemonade, can you switch to diet? Like, just from a calorie consumption perspective, that's all. So find your easy wins, but the easy wins that are linked to the things that I've said, okay? Understand where things can trip you up. So I've touched on that very quickly. Obviously, there's other things as well. Environment is a big thing, guys. If your environment is positive and good, the outcome will almost certainly be positive and good. So just bear that in mind. This is something I talk a lot about to parents, because often parents will pick out their children's meals and stuff, and depending on their age, dinner time can be quite a stressful scenario and a stressful situation for mums and dads to be in, and trying to feed everyone and do all this and do that, and then they're picking themselves, and again, they're being mindless. You need to be mindful, but your coach will work with you on that. And then last but not least, I do most of the social media lives, both Facebook and Instagram. If you've got any questions at all, please hit me up on there. I'd love to hear from you. If I've not made anything clear, definitely reach out to me and I will happily go into more detail. But that is the end of your first webinar, which is all about energy balance. And I hope you feel much more clued up on the subject now and have taken some really important points away that can help you as a person. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed, and I'll speak to you all very soon.